So, first question is, can you tell us the story behind Sharesies? How did the idea come about?
Cool. So we were all working in jobs at the time, and the Kiwibank FinTech Accelerator was coming up. And a lot of us, we wanted to start our own business, and it was in FinTech, so we're kind of brainstorming, what can we do? And then one night I was at home with my partner and I couldn't be bothered cooking, and we were deciding whether to go out for dinner or not. And I thought, I'm just going to spend this $50 on something else. If I don't, there's nothing worthwhile I can do about it. And then I thought, imagine if I could invest this money right now and actually do something with it, just online on my phone. At the time, in the media, everywhere, it was the smashed avocado. Millennials are pretty screwed because they can't buy houses. And there was just it felt like there was a real disconnect between, I guess, the finance industry and people and helping them get ahead. So the 7 of us got together, so we're all from pretty diverse skill sets. 2 developers, a designer, Brooke, Leighton and I, who are all from kind of marketing, finance, tech backgrounds. And John, who's also one of the founders, got together, decided this was something we all really, really cared about, and thought, great, let's all hands in the middle create Team Sharesies. We then we applied to get into the accelerator program and were accepted. We went through the validator, which was run by Natalie. And what that really meant was we went out with the idea. So we knew that we wanted to make people or help people get involved in investing and give an alternative to property to help your money work for you. And then but we went out with a set of questions and interviewed people to really find out their attitudes towards money. So not just specifically about investing, but how they saw money, what they wanted to do, what were their goals in their life, and then learned a lot about that. And we just kind of kept going out with different questions every few weeks, just kind of honing in until we found our solution really matched a way to solve that problem that we'd found. And so the 3 key things that we learned were that people felt like they were priced out of the investment market. That's why they don't invest. That there was just too much jargon. So even if you've had the money to then go on the websites of the people providing those services, it just felt like you couldn't really understand what was going on. And then also that it wasn't really targeted, like when you didn't really see people like you investing on those types of sites. So that's where we kind of came up with Sharesies and decided that is what we're going to do.
Nice. And so what's the vision behind Sharesies and what's your product as well?
Yeah, so our vision is that we want someone with $50 to have the same investment opportunities as someone with $50,000. And so, as Sonya said, to start off with, that's letting people know that they can have access and do have access to investing, and that it's super easy to get started. So that's what we're mostly focused on at the moment. So that means, in the next 6 months, all Kiwis knowing that they've got access and really starting to ramp that up. And then as Sonya touched on, we really want to help people have a positive relationship with money. There's so much taboo around money and we don't talk about it. And if we shared, our investment philosophies or, tips and tricks around money, it could be amazing about, how we could enable each other and money becoming less of a stress for people. So that's what we're really passionate about solving.
Yeah, cool. And you can just see it. I see people all the time who have signed up for Sharesies and now it's kicking off conversations around what they're investing in, and it's just I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, we really can't wait, and we've already started to see it. Somebody with a $20 investment portfolio can have a conversation with someone like a $200,000 investment portfolio and just share investment strategies, and you take that kind of elitism out of investing or that work. We really can't wait to do that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Any questions from the audience at this point? Is it this? Yes. Someone's phone was ringing. Sorry.
It's just like a backtrack.
Cool, that's better. So then, because I remember you coming in as a group just before the validator, and sort of, it was like a vague concept of the idea that everyone, exactly as you said, we go out to lunch and we spend $20 on avocado on toast, but no one can afford to invest in a house or buy anything else like that. How did you refine that into what you ended up with as the product? Like, what was the kind of the key process that you went through?
So the first step was really that kind of set of questions around the wider situation. And then it was, like, as I said, we kind of just keep going out. Every 2 weeks we'd get a new set of questions and test those. And the first one, the first kind of, I guess, iteration or prototype was just a paper prototype. So we just kind of drawn on some mobile screens and took them out and said, you know, if this kind of thing, you know, what would you expect to see here? What would you, and just tried to kind of, we didn't have any detail in it. It was more to elicit like how people would think or what they'd want to see in something like that. So it was really stripped back, like no detail. And then as we learned from that, we just kind of went further and further and further in to then get to this point where it was kind of a live mock-up that clicked through. And right to the the day before we launched our beta product, we did a customer test, and one of the key insights that really helped us was we watched someone kind of go through and buy an investment, because knowing what to pick, how do you know what to pick? And that was kind of the daunting thing. But then once they went through it and then said, oh, now that I've done it once, I know how to do it. You know, I feel comfortable. I'd do it again. And so that's where we decided to kind of have some money available in the wallet. If people kind of aren't familiar with Sharesies, there's a wallet where you deposit money, and that's the money you can invest. So people get a starter so they can make their first investment. So that was it was right down to the last minute that we were still making changes based on customer feedback, and we're still doing that now. Mm.
And so the story behind Sharesies was always a big part of what, like, I guess the early stage marketing, it's what you tell, and the vision behind it as well. And I think that's what's really different from other financial companies, as well as your product being different. But and you also managed to get a number of pre-sign-ups before you launch the product. How important was the story piece and the vision behind what you're doing with getting that momentum?
So the first thing we did was put up a website, like just a splash page, essentially, where people can put in their email address. And then we wrote blogs about money, and not just about investing, but we did actually start profiling people about their first investment. And they were people from all walks of life, just talking about that first time kind of being kind of scary and not really knowing and feeling like a bit of a fool the first time you do something. And that's really, we didn't know, like we had an idea that this was going to be kind of popular and resonate with people, because we all kind of wanted this to exist and felt like people would want it too. But until that point, until you start collecting email addresses, or you don't even have a product in market yet, but things are resonating, and I think that's kind of encourages you just to keep going and going. And when you start that conversation so early, like through blogs and stuff like that, it helped us understand what was really important to people and what we needed to keep being, and then the things that weren't that important and things that we should probably stop doing and cut out. So I think it was incredibly helpful to have, when we launched we had 6,000 email addresses, and that was a really cool moment, because you think, oh, awesome, well, we've got this group of people and they're on our side, and it felt like we were creating it for them, and that was pretty special.
Yeah, nice. Any questions?
What kind of thing do you guys...
Hi guys.
Hello.
I've actually never heard of your company, so it's really great to be here. What kind of stuff do you help people invest in or empower them to invest in?
So we knew when we launched Sharesies from this research too that we were going to probably attract newbie investors. So what we thought was really, really important is that we launched with investments that were well diversified rather than, say, individual equities. And there's great examples of when a bunch of newbie investors, say, went into Snapchat when they IPO'd and then rode that volatility curve and didn't really understand, I guess, the risk that kind of you're taking on with an individual equity. So we launched with 6 exchange traded funds, so they're managed by the NZX Smart Shares. And an example of one, sorry, I'm too handsy. My hands, I guess. So we launched, say one example is New Zealand Top 50, so you're investing in the top 50 New Zealand businesses. And so we really wanted to make sure that people understood, I guess, what they're investing in to start with. And another really important part as a newbie investor is access to that investing. So making sure that they could, what we call liquid, I guess, so they can they can purchase it really quickly and sell it rather quickly too, just to learn a bit more about investing before getting into some more riskier investments that might take longer to get your money out. So it's kind of what we decided to launch with. And then, but what we really wanted to launch with was some socially responsible investments. They're quite tricky to hunt down in New Zealand. And also we needed to build a really robust tax engine to be able to offer them. So we do have them now. So we've got a socially responsible investment fund and a global water fund. And it's so good to be able to have those on our platform now.
Conscious
Yeah.
business. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
How did you attract people to your initial splash page?
So we set up we're posting stuff on Medium. So we use Medium because it was the easiest way to get our content out there immediately. And then we would just promote those posts on our Facebook page. And that's largely how we did it.
Thank you. Question from the customer, really. I guess planning to release mobile app?
Yeah. So we get this question quite a bit. So we've launched with a web app. So that means because we're in beta still, there's heaps more features we want to launch, and that way we're managing one web, application rather than Android, Apple, and that. But over time, we probably will get into apps. We're quite excited about React. I'm not sure if anybody's using that here, but React Native, where you can actually, hopefully not one day there won't be apps and it will kind of all work really well from a mobile web app. That's what we're hoping will happen really quickly, but I think it's a few years away.
So the next question is then, how do you know that mobile app is something you don't really need at the moment and you just proceed with website?
So you might want to take this one, but what we find the main question about why people want a mobile app is because they want to be able to log in really simply. And so we've got, right now you can add it to your home screen so it feels like an app, and that's kind of overcoming that main barrier at the moment. So as I said, we've got heaps more features to launch, and it's way quicker to launch with a web application.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Hi. What was the process from when you decided that you were going to go all in and do this? At that point, were you all still working in your old jobs, and then did you kind of stay there and do it on the side for a bit and then go all in? And then when you had gone all in, how long did it take to launch the product?
For about, I guess, from October, when we were doing the research, we were still in our jobs. And then in February, which is when the accelerator started, 3 of us out of the team of 7 decided that we would go full-time. And really, so that was Brooke, Leighton and I. And then everyone else was kind of working in their jobs and part-time. And then the accelerator finished in May, and we launched our product at the start of June. And at that stage, everyone then started coming on more and more, to now we've got a full-time team and more people.
You're hiring at the moment, right?
Yeah, we've got 3 jobs.
So they are
a web developer, a UX designer, and an operations manager. So that's,
based in Wellington.
based in Wellington.
It's a cool place. We've got way better weather at the moment, by the way.
Which
Never happens.
Is there any more questions from the crowd?
You mentioned something about I want to say it in a German accent, the validator. What was your process for validating it? You talked a little bit about it, but how does that work? How did you find people? What were you looking for?
I guess I'm from a research background, so we did kind of ethnographic interviews, which are really, you want me to go quite detailed here? Yep. Okay. Which is when you do quite in-depth interviews where things are pretty grey and you're really looking for quite explorative stuff. You don't really know what you're looking for at that point, but you're going in a certain direction. But it's really led from people, and you just are curious really to find out how they are and how they deal with money. And then once we felt like we had an insight from those things, and so the way we would recruit people is really just friends and then friends of friends and then colleagues and then friends of colleagues. We really wanted to get away from our immediate group. Then if we found a student, it would be like, tell us all your friends. And then, so if we found someone that was in a group that we weren't in, we would then really just try and kind of use them to help us introduce into more people. So then it would be that we're getting these kind of diverse points of view, that we're not just kind of targeting one group and learning about them, that it was really, let's learn about how different people are approaching these things to see if there's some common threads. And then once those insights came, we would then hone in a bit more on that and then prove it out. So we talked a bit about the sustainable investments. So one of the things that we then refined down was, what's most important for you to see when it comes to your investment. And everyone would tell you it was return. But what people told us was that they wanted to feel like their investment was having a positive impact. And they wanted to feel comfortable with the level of risk that they were taking on. And then return was kind of this thing that people didn't explicitly ever say, which was really surprising. And so we kind of based our whole kind of what we show on that a lot, that we focused on what you own rather than the value of what you own, because that can go up and down. And so it just kind of kept refining down naturally from there. I hope that answers.
That's good.
Cool. Another question. So the other, now that you've done it, it seems like such an obviously brilliant idea. And I bet other financial institutions, namely banks, are probably kicking themselves for not doing it. What do you think well maybe they're not, I don't know, you can probably provide some insight, but what do you think the unique view or insight that you had into this space is that has made you to be able to create this movement in such a sought after product?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what Sonya was just describing. We really cared about the research side. So we spent 9 months doing customer research and then product testing and research before we launched. And I think that was really important. What we didn't also start with was, here's an idea, we're going to make it happen. We started with, here's a concept, let's explore it, and then form what Sharesies is from that. I think that was really crucial. When you look at the current financial institutions, they're not really targeting this space. They really care about, you talk to them and they say this, they really care about the wealthy in terms of that's where they see that they make their money, so they care more about larger investors. And to get access to financial advice, you typically need 250,000 or $1 million, to get access from banks. So it's an area that they're just really undervalued, and I think that's why we're being able to just place shine a light on it and create these opportunities through caring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions? Keep going. Okay. So my next question is, so you've done exceptionally well with getting exposure and media coverage for Sharesies. You're everywhere, which is awesome. It's so good. It's great to see for an early stage startup as well to get that traction. What do you think has driven that, or how has it kind of happened organically, or have you done certain things that have really enabled that to happen?
Yeah, I think I'll answer the first half, and I think you've heard some good insights here too. We at the start, so when we launched Sharesies, the other key thing that we wanted to make sure is that we didn't just put money behind it and drive marketing uptake and then customers come. So we really wanted to make sure that there was a product market fit and that it sold itself, because we didn't want to we were giving up the corporate careers, earning no money. We didn't want to prolong Sharesies' death if we just were flooding money behind it and weren't really seeing the results from the product being amazing. It was more, the marketing was great. So we were really careful on that. And so therefore at the start was really organic. We just really cool opportunities came out of, I think being in that accelerator probably helped a bit. Just maybe in Wellington too, there were just some awesome opportunities that came out of it. And we saw 50% of our traffic was direct. So that was either from work customers sharing it, or some PR we had really early on. And And now I'll pass to Sonya, who can talk about our strategy now.
I also think it was already things that were being talked about in the media, but it was things that it was all a bit kind of no hope. Like it was all just a bit dire, really. It was kind of all focusing on the lack of being able to buy a house rather than a solution or an answer. And I guess, and one thing we try to come across was creating opportunities where people can have access and people can take, the power into their own hands and do what they want and create the life they want, and rather than someone telling them how to do that. And so I think the way that was just something that was interesting to the media at the time, which is really cool that we can be a part of that as well. And from here on, we are just continuing to kind of write blogs and talk about things that are interesting to people. I think, like Brooke kind of talked about it, around the negative relationship with money that people have when they feel like they don't have control over their money. Money is a part of everyone's lives, and so I think when you offer the chance to peek behind the curtain of someone else's life and how they're managing their money, it's just interesting because you're like, oh phew, it wasn't just me, or like, oh thank goodness. So when you tell more stories about how different people are doing it, it just kind of resonates, and we're hoping that to kind of get rid of the taboo of talking about money, because that's the best way people can learn about things and swap strategies amongst themselves and get better at stuff. Yeah.
Questions?
Kia ora.
Hello.
Sounds like you guys have done some pretty amazing stuff already, and you've been around for a year, is that right? About a year. Where do you guys want to be in 5 years?
We're just interviewing people and asking. That's a good question. Yeah, so we all got together on October last year, but Sharesies was launched in June. So effectively, 6 months old, or, nearly. And our vision right now, like I was talking about, is we want all Kiwis to know that they've got access to investing and it's an option for them. Then later in 5 years, we do see Sharesies as a global company, but we really want to take the approach. We don't care about being first. We want to offer just the best experience possible. So we see the next best opportunity at the moment is in Australia. So we'll start looking at exploring there. But again, we spent 9 months doing research here. It'll probably be similar, if not longer, to really make sure that we really, know what Sharesies is in Australia. And then there's awesome opportunities in Asia too at the moment. So that's what we're looking at.
Cool.
Yes.
So 6 months. Oh, there's another question.
It's a
Yes, sorry.
white
Sorry,
t-shirt.
Sorry, somebody's asked this. But I'm just wondering if Sharesies has any plans in the future to get involved in the crypto space and education around the crypto space.
Yeah, great question. And it is something we talk about quite a bit internally. We're all quite interested in it and following it quite a bit. Like I was just saying earlier, we knew that with Sharesies we were going to be attracting newbie investors. So with that, we've taken a lot of care, and that means that in making sure that like they're diversified, they've got access to liquidity, and they also understand the risks they're taking on. With cryptocurrencies, it's a bit hard to kind of define that risk, I guess. And really, in my view, it's quite speculative at the moment. So, but it's quite exciting. So we're definitely keeping an eye on it and seeing, if and when the right time might be to introduce options like that.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions? So 6 months is correct. Like, you've grown incredibly in 6 months. Like, I think at the last Entrepreneurs Unleashed, I was even just saying, like, usually you don't really hear that much about companies until they've been around for almost a couple of years. So it's actually amazing what you've done. Do you have how do you think it's happened so fast? Like, is there anything that you can pinpoint that has enabled you to grow so fast?
I think I'll get you to answer some of this too, but the key thing that comes to me is the team. We started with a team of 7, and we got told we were nuts at the start, especially from investors. They're like, how's equity going to work? You're never going to make it, and it's honestly our secret sauce, I think, especially in fintech where it's highly regulated. You need power and grunt behind you to get off the ground quickly. So I'm pretty sure like that is what has enabled us to really take off really quickly. And in that, we talk about it from a culture perspective, like this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're not one of those startups with a culture like, we got to win, and if that means staying up till 2 a.m. and coming to work at 6 a.m., that's what it takes. We really want to make sure people have balance and live an awesome life and love, every moment. And I think having that care for people and, and each other has really helped us too.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So there's no one way, right? There's all these rules that people say that you should do, but there's no one way.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd totally say team.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
So how have you managed to make it work?
What, the team?
Yeah, the team. Is it the right people, or you have like incredible leadership abilities?
I think we've so there's a few things. I guess to start with, I really care, and we all do, that people, when they come into Sharesies, that they report to Sharesies. There is some structure there, definitely, and we need that. That's kind of how companies are kind of required. And we also found that structure's been really, really good for us in terms of people knowing what areas that they kind of have autonomy or can make decisions, over. But if people report to Sharesies and not their report as we grow, then that egos are being taken out of decisions and you're not doing something for what your manager wants, you're doing what's actually right for Sharesies and always bring that voice. We really early on defined how do we want to work and then wrap them up into values. So we really all chase remarkable in everything we do, and we make sure that really shows in our app. We always care, and that shows, like I was talking about with each other, but also for our customers and just, care about the details. We're in it together, and that means we really didn't want to create an individualistic culture, and I guess it's kind of what I was alluding to before, we're all here, reporting to Sharesies. And and so I think that was really important to set up that framework of how we want to work really early on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I forgot where I was going with that.
Do you want to add to that?
no, good.
Any questions from the audience? No? Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it's actually, I was just having a conversation with someone about this yesterday, about how people can come together and collectively come up with an idea versus an individual having an idea and a vision and then people getting behind that. How did it work for Sharesies? Was it an individual with a vision, or did you all collectively kind of just come up with the concept of Sharesies?
I definitely think that we all bring something to it, and I think it's really, really key. Some of the coolest moments for me are when we kind of are really, we work out in the quite open, if we're solving a problem, we always gather around and everyone feeds into that thing, because we always kind of challenge ourselves that it's not ego, that it's the best idea or it's the best way, and that and sometimes you can't get there on your own. You have to. It's about the rebound or the back and forth of that idea being seen from someone else's point of view, or and how important that is to grow something forward.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that setting those values of how we wanted to work together and the kinds of things that were important to us, and we do really use those. When when we don't feel like we're working in that way, it's oh cool, we've got to work more like that because that's how we value it. So I don't know, I feel like I've gone off track, but that's
great.
kind of the gist of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then how about personally? How do you, developing a company is a huge journey, so how do you manage it yourselves? Do you have any tips for people that are starting out or in the process of growing companies from managing your mindset? It's a kind of a huge question, but anything that comes to mind? Yeah,
and we'll both answer this. It's around, I think for me personally, it is around making sure I have perspective. And because I think when you don't have perspective, you can operate from a really funny place. It could be out of control or fear, or you're not operating at the best point for your mind. So there's certain things, which is just about the self-care, making sure you put that first. And when something feels like you can't leave it, it's probably a good time to go for a walk or something. Because it's that's a signal now. It's step away. So it's almost watching that like a hawk. And I think as a team we all support each other to do that, because it is really important that everyone's operating really, really well and from a kind of a good place.
Yeah, and for me, it's quite similar, but it's about managing my energy, like more than my time. So if that means that I wake up, I've got this burst of energy, and then I just want to go, you know, for a long ass walk, and I get into office at 10 or something, that's good, because that's, you know, like me processing whatever, or if it's like, well, I'm pregnant at the moment, so sometimes I really feel like a nap. I'm not really doing that, but you know, you just, you know, like just managing my energy is really important, and taking that care, as you said, in yourself, and whether that's, you know, like especially at the moment, if you've got things at night and in the morning, just being okay, I'm not going to do the thing in the morning because I just know that I need the energy later on. So yeah.
Cool. And how about, what tips do you have for people that are sitting in the audience with ideas or ambitions to do their own thing, maybe in corporate jobs, in a similar position to what you were? What words of advice do you have for them about getting started?
Yeah. About getting started.
Yeah, or just...
Yeah. I think for us, you know, if you think about like how we got started, it's like there was a team. So think about, you know, is it something you can do on your own, or is it someone you need, you know, do you need a crew, and what kind of skills and people do you want in that crew, and then go and hustle and find them and build that, because then, you know, that, you know, a problem shared or an idea shared, you know, you just never know where it's going to go, and how you can really start building that up. So I think, you know, if you've got something, share the idea, and that's actually something that's quite key, I think, because you get kind of protective over an idea, like, but that, you know, like, I've come up with an idea or whatever, but if you share it, it can just get so much better, and can grow from there, and the likelihood of somebody actually taking it, you know, they typically don't have the impetus, you know, or the passion behind it. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
I think if it's something that you can't kind of get out of your head, like you can't just let it go, like it keeps kind of bubbling up or popping up, you know, over time, and then when you're at your job, you're like, oh, this is so cool, I want to do this. I guess ask yourself like why you wouldn't, and then if it's because it feels risky, it's like do what you need to feel comfortable about doing that thing, and kind of look at it, and it's like, all right, well, it's because this is unknown. It's like, well, is there a way you can find out and make that any less unknown? Because like we were pretty brutal early on. We kind of almost went in with the mindset that this wasn't going to work or this wasn't going to be a business, and kind of tested like that. And then that made us kind of get into this comfortable space where it like really felt like this was something. So the day that like I left my job, I didn't feel like it was a risk, because I felt like there was nothing else I'd rather be doing than giving this a shot. And I felt so kind of confident in it at the time, and in the team, that it just didn't feel very risky, and that I couldn't look at myself in a year and go, well, what am I up to now? But I totally have been in situations before where I've had ideas and they didn't bubble back up again, or like, or it just kind of was like, oh, I just didn't really want to give it that leap at that time. So.
And do you think you could have like got this far or been through this process with a different idea, or was this the idea that was like, well, this was the area that kind of was just the right fit for the team?
Yeah, it's always it's always really hard to kind of look back and go, if something was different, like how would that change? Because you are just where you are, and it's like, who knows what made that thing happen. But I do think it's a pretty unique thing where everyone's backgrounds bring something to the table for this particular, you know, for this problem. And I think it's one that resonated with all of us, and it's one that we still feel really super passionate about this long, you know, this far into it. Yeah, so I don't think I can answer that.
Cool. Any last questions? We've probably got time for a couple more. Final questions?
Yeah, it's always interesting to ask who have been your biggest mentors and biggest inspirations in your creative process?
In terms of like with Sharesies and
yeah, everything you've done.
Yeah, we've in terms of Sharesies, we've been really fortunate to have some amazing advisors, and yeah, one of them, for example, we got really early on, was Paul Williams. So we knew we were optimistic entrepreneurs with crazy ideas in terms of where we thought the business would go or what we could achieve really early on. And it was really great getting this guy who now he's just in the business with us all the time. He's our virtual CFO pretty much now. Paul Williams, where he really made sure that we had a really robust business model from day one. So we've got backgrounds in financial modelling, but then we've got that optimistic entrepreneurial kind of spirit. We'll just put crazy numbers in there, I guess. And he was really good with his experience because he was at Xero as pretty much their CFO for the first, few years, and is really understands the startup scene. He really helped make us create a really realistic, but also kind of audacious business model too. And then that's kind of what we've it's really helped us ground really early on. And I actually can't underestimate like the value of having a really strong financial plan and business model quite early on, because that's helped us in terms of figure out where we're going to spend and tracking that, how much we need to raise, and what our valuation is, and all of that really is really from his advice and his guidance throughout our journey.
It's also like super hard to pick like kind of one person who inspires you, but I think it's pretty awesome to be in New Zealand, and I think how awesome the community is around helping businesses get off the ground. And I think your constant people who have made it, or people who are up to something awesome, how they will take time out of their day to come and talk to you really early on about what you're up to. I think that is just incredibly inspiring, and I think that kind of helps you push forward, and then they introduce you to someone else, and then you feel like you've got these great supporters around you, and they're really helping you. And I think there's just awesome talent for that in New Zealand who are willing to share it as well.
Cool. Last question.
Can you please describe any of your pivoting decisions you've made throughout the journey, like pivoting decisions?
Oh, pivoting.
Pivoting.
Yeah. And why did you make it?
I think. Do you want to take that one?
Could one be about the? I think it wasn't really because we didn't kind of come with the solution. We kind of came with the problem and then came to the solution. But one of the things was that when we first wanted to launch, it was really that we wanted to give access to like heaps of different types of investments. And like there's these places that sell shares in orchards and vineyards and cows, and there's like all this random stuff you can invest in. But the minimum buy-in on those is like $100,000. So I guess it's kind of a slight pivot. We don't have orchards on the platform right now. They are pretty interesting, and I think like it's always really cool, the idea of investing in something super tangible, and something that you probably wouldn't, you don't want to put 100 grand into it. But I think that would probably be where we are right now, but I wouldn't kind of call that necessarily a pivot, but that's probably a significant change and something we thought we wanted to do, but have now gone down a different path.
That's a good one, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so just to line with the theme, final question. For anyone else that's really driven by solving a social problem or kicking off a movement, what's the top couple of tips that you have for really like creating momentum and driving a change fast or slow? Whichever. I mean, you don't have to move fast, but you've obviously done it fast.
Yeah.
Top tips.
I think it's kind of what we did. We moved slow to go fast. So we spent so much time doing that customer research and really not trying to put a lens on it of what we wanted to hear, We were really open to people saying, I don't want to be an investor. But then we did an independent survey of over 4,000 Kiwis, and 99.5% said they want to be an investor. Like, okay, we're on to something then. Like, we've got to be. But they couldn't be from all of that research we showed. So I think spending that time doing all of that research and just, not just getting too excited, just go do it, really making sure that you've done that, and you really get to the heart and the purpose of what you're trying to achieve, the movement will come.
I think with social businesses as well, it's kind of like if you have a product, it's hard to get people to care about your product, and usually you have to make up reasons for them to care about it. But when you find the thing that people care about and then create a product based on that, then that becomes quite a different conversation, because you're like, cool, we'll just focus on what people care about and I'll do that. And I think that's, for any social business, there's usually a really, really good reason why you're doing what you're doing, and it's like, find the people who care about that, and then talk about that with them, and then go from there.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, thank you so much. I, as always, would love to keep picking your brains for a lot longer, but we're a bit short on time. So a big round of applause. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.